What's up, everybody? Back with the Bears Over Beers quick hitter here. I pulled EJ Snyder away from bootleg just for a few minutes, give him an opportunity to stand up, walk around, crack a beverage, just get away from the 28 straight hours of live streaming that you've done over there. We are here to talk about the newest Chicago Bear, Dominique Robinson, defensive end out of Miami of Ohio, and I know you are psyched about this one.
I am. I'm really excited about this. This is a great pick. Just happened a few minutes ago, and when it popped up on the screen, definitely a sharp cheer. You'll be able to see that on the bootleg live stream if you watch the replay. Both arms in the air, kind of a thing. Dominique Robinson, defensive end, Miami of Ohio, played with Sterling Weatherford. There was a Senior Bowl ad. Big guy, 6'5", 253, has better bend at that height than a lot of guys in this class. And it's just a testament to the class that there are effective edge rushers. And that's exactly what I think Dominique Robinson can be in the middle of the fifth, almost the end of the fifth. That's not typical. As you know, edge rushers go off the board fairly quickly. And by the time you usually get into the fourth or fifth round, typically in a draft, edge rushers, you're just betting on traits and hoping something will happen. That's not Dominique Robinson. He's actually a guy that rushes with a plan. Hand use is pretty good, can certainly get better, but like I said, has some bend, has some speed, has some good reps at the Senior Bowl against some of the top offensive linemen in the country. Really is going to come in. I think he's probably going to sit at right behind Robert Quinn. Travis Gibson on the other side. He could rotate side to side. He did that at Miami of Ohio. But really, this is preparation for when Quinn moves on, potentially after his contract's up. Having another young rusher that can produce some edge pressure in the Bears defense.
Yeah, for those of you that are watching us on the live stream or taking a look at this video afterwards, I have the relative athletic score up from our friend MathBomb. Kent, quickly getting these out, showing the Bears logo on this relative athletic score. And it is just filled with green. This guy just pops off the chart with his testing numbers. These are very enviable athletic numbers that he was able to put up. And like you say, kind of a surprise that he was available this late with just this raw athletic talent. What could be the reason for that? Just small school or just, like you say, just depth of the class?
It's depth of the class. It's numbers. We're still in a position where I made a list last night before I went to bed of best available players for day 3. Robinson was my edge number 2. On that. Michael Clemens, the guy that went to the Jets pretty early in the 4th round, was my number 1, and Robinson was right after that. And Tyreek Smith was my 3rd one, and he went a little bit earlier to the Seahawks. All of those guys, in my estimation, are guys that can play. Like right now, they can contribute to a rotation. Clemens might even be a guy that you could stand up as a starter. But right now, I think all of those guys' role is number 2, but they're going to be guys that can come in rotationally and produce sacks as rookies. And it's, Tyreek Smith was my edge 15 in this class. They're going to be available because you just can't pick that many edges in 5 rounds. Again, this is one of the largest draft classes overall in history. I'm not talking about the size of the individual players. I'm talking about the number of overall players that are available to be drafted, and that's because of the COVID bump in the super senior year. So there's just more guys in it, and stands to reason there are more guys that can play. But again, edge is one of those positions where typically it runs dry after about middle of the 3rd round. You're asking that question like, hey, why is this guy available in the 5th? The guys picked in front of him were also good players. It's not that he skipped or he has a personality thing or maybe an injury. It's just that, they're getting to him because they're 14 edges in the middle of the 5th. And Dominique Robinson's next, and the Bears are lucky.
Now, I brought up the relative athletic score already, and this is Ryan Poles' first draft, and we have an opportunity to spend the next few months kind of looking back and trying to examine like what he did in this draft. And there's still plenty of picks to be made. He made a lot of trade downs to try to acquire some more picks. He traded next year's 6th rounder.
Can we celebrate about that?
Well, hey man, I'm all for it, man.
Every time we celebrate about that?
Every time he traded down, I was like, yes. Oh wait, I got to wait a little longer to talk to EJ.
It's okay. We've been begging for this as Bears fans, and folks that follow the team and talk about the team, we have said, man, it's just going to be so hard to look at this draft as successful for Chicago if they don't add some picks. And they didn't do it up top with their biggest assets. And everybody I certainly collectively held my breath and was like, well, I guess he's just going to have a big UDFA class. Instead, aggressively today, trades down again, and stacks picks. So I'm just gonna ring the bell for a second there that Ryan Poles sort of heard that, knew that, and said, yeah, I want to take more shots in this really deep and varied, talented class. I just want more swings, and he finally got him. It was something Ryan Pace very rarely did.
And I think with those more swings, he's getting an opportunity to fill this roster with a lot of guys that have an opportunity to get playing time. One of my questions early on, it's way too early to make any assessments about what Ryan Poles is all about, right? But we're 5 picks into his tenure, and all 5 picks have had relative athletic score cards that are lit up in green, meaning that they're very athletic guys. Are we starting to see enough of a trend here to say Ryan Poles might have a type?
He might. We're definitely going to use this as data to start to build his type, as we will with other new GMs who are getting their first swings around the league. Poles is not the only one, but it's certainly leaning that way. If we were an election right now and we were talking about early returns would say if you're athletic, you have a chance with the Bears, because so far you're right. The folks he has picked have all been very, very strong athletes, in addition to being good football players. I think the tackle they took right before, Dominique Robinson, was the first player who's sort of more deeply into his developmental curve and needs some work still, but was a crazy athlete. Maybe we can just say that the most pure athlete, not athlete football player combination. The guys at the top were all both. So, the early answer is yes. I wouldn't bet against it at this point. That wouldn't be smart money. We'll see as he continues on whether he varies outside that envelope and maybe grabs somebody who isn't the greatest athlete but had some great tape, or if he veers strongly the other direction and goes for folks that just had off the charts athletic testing who are still really developmental as players.
Now, as the draft enters round 6, there's a few picks left. Obviously, we'll continue to have a pod for each pick that Ryan Poles makes here on day 3. But are there any guys that are kind of standing out like, man, if he's got an opportunity, I'd really like to see that next pick used on?
Oh, boy, there's a lot. And
good.
Just tons of players. And I do want Poles, despite getting all these extra picks, which is just control at this point. He can say, come to the Bears. You don't get a chance to negotiate with anybody else as a UDFA. I still want Poles and his staff to hit the UDFA process really, really hard. Really hard. Because the Bears roster is not great and has a lot of holes. Like you said, a lot of opportunity is the positive way to look at that. Players can come in and play right away. So, but guys on the board that are still there. I don't know if Bo Melton's off the board.
I think he's still there unless he's been off the last
Bo
couple
Melton,
picks.
the receiver from Rutgers, would love to see him added to the Bears rotation. Makai Polk, who's a wide receiver from Mississippi State. He's a transfer from Cal. He had 1 year at Mississippi State and put up over 1,000 yards in the SEC against all those corners you saw come off the board from, Auburn and Alabama. And so Makai Polk would be a great addition. There's a receiver who I think will actually be a UDFA. I don't think he's going to get drafted, from North Carolina State, named Emeka Emezi, and he would be a lot of fun. He didn't test very well, so I think he might be available for not a pick. There's offensive tackles. Has Rasheed Walker gone yet?
I don't know, man.
Don't know? Okay.
I've been prepping this one.
Yeah. Penn State tackle Rasheed Walker. I'd love to see him. He had some really good tape against Hutchinson and Ojabo in their game against Michigan. Kellen Deesh, the left tackle from Arizona State, super athletic, really good blocker, great run blocker in space. So again, speaking of Poles' type, he mentioned in his press conference earlier, he wanted offensive linemen that were lighter and faster. Yeah. That Deesh would fit that profile, but they might not go that way since they already picked a tackle.
Right.
But again, if he wants to stack some depth, go for it. That's what these picks are for. So lots and lots of players. And there's inside linebacker depth too. Jeremiah Gemmel's a guy from North Carolina that is pretty good in pass coverage. And again, wouldn't have to play right away. I know the Bears are high on Morrow, the guy they got from the Raiders. So just a lot of talent that he could stack. There's some tight end depth as well. Tons and tons of players.
Awesome stuff, EJ. I'm going to let you get back to Bootleg. For those of you that are watching on the live stream, obviously hop back onto Bootleg if you weren't already. Appreciate if you jumped over to listen to EJ on this one. Jump back over there and listen to him for the rest of the day. Him and Brett are doing a great job over on Bootleg. We'll be having Bears podcasts through the rest of the day for every single pick. And until then, after EJ gets to sleep for a few days, we will then cut a draft pod. We'll start going through these guys so we can get a little bit more in depth on each one. But so far in day 3, a couple of nice picks, and this one is a thumbs up for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking forward to seeing him in navy and orange. And looking forward to seeing what Poles does with all the rest of these picks he's grabbed, because we all asked for it and we got what we wanted. Right. Let's see if we can start building that profile out and see what he really likes.
Awesome. Thanks, EJ. Appreciate it. Thanks, everybody, for joining us.